What's up everyone, Karl Anderson here. Welcome back to another video, and sadly we got more WWE releases to talk about. Like I said in my last video, it always sucks when people do lose their jobs, but you know, that's how things go in the wrestling business, and I do think some of these people could benefit from a change of scenery. They won't really do much in WWE, and maybe, you know, going somewhere else, trying something else will kind of help relaunch their careers a bit, maybe get back to doing some good stuff on TV or just on the independent scene. Some of these names, they came out Saturday after the first batch Friday evening, and I decided to wait until the end of the weekend just in case we did get more names added to that list, and we did get one more added on the Sunday. So it is a good thing that I did wait and for this video. Let's not waste any time. Let's get into it, and let's start off by talking about Karl Anderson and Luke Gallows, of course, the Good Brothers. They recently have been on NXT doing some stuff. Well, not recently, but the last time we seen them on TV was in NXT to do some stuff. And like, they haven't really been doing that on the main roster, so I can kind of understand where they're going from, especially if the NXT, you know, is still meant to be considered developmental, I guess. And, you know, Gallows and Anderson, they're veterans. They've been around a long time, so I kind of get it. But I feel like the tag division needs teams, and especially an established big team like Gallows and Anderson, like the Good Brothers, will help it. I am a big fan of the Good Brothers. I'm a big Bullet Club fan, so I'll always have a special place for Gallows and Anderson. And yeah, like I said, I feel like the tag divisions could use a Good Brothers, especially in NXT. You only really use Fraser and Axiom. I know Inamura and Briggs are kind of like in and around there as well, but other than that, I'm kind of struggling to think of teams off the top of my head. I'm struggling to think of teams on NXT. If you call up Fraser and Axiom, that NXT tag division is pretty much on life support. It is not looking good. So I feel like you could have benefited from keeping the Good Brothers around a bit, even if you want to just use them on the main roster. Like I said in the last one when talking about the Hours of Pain, and like the Goodson, and saying like maybe there could have been a place for Chase U. I especially think the Raw tag division needs something to help revitalize that. You know, we've seen it on SmackDown once the Motor City Machine Guns came in. That was what the kick the SmackDown tag division has needed. We've got the titles defended at the Royal Rumble, and it looks like we're setting up a big multi-man matchup for WrestleMania. You know, with the Street Profits involved, you still have Pretty Deadly involved. Of course, the Motor City Machine Guns, the Champions DIY. So I feel like the Raw tag division could have used something to help bolster it and help elevate it a bit more. And maybe that could have been Gallows and Anderson, or maybe for them it's better to go elsewhere. Where do I think they'll end up? It's hard to tell. You cannot write them off going back to New Japan. We've seen them in AEW before they went back to WWE after their first release, doing stuff with the Super Elite and doing stuff with Kenny Omega when he was running all the championships and the belt collector angle. Of course, they were in TNA. I could see them going back to TNA. I feel like that's a more likely destination than AEW. So I feel like we'll see them in AEW or in TNA and New Japan more likely. I do think that the WWE tag division, especially on the Raw side, and NXT could have used them. But, you know, the whole reason given for these releases is to make way for a new batch of NXT call-ups. Especially if you're new, that, you know, NXT does kind of need some love. It's just the women's division, the men's division, the tag division I've talked about in the last video. You know, it could use some help. Let's just leave it at that. Especially if you're going to be gotten in now and, you know, maybe calling up more people from that. Yeah, it's not really looking good, but let's wait and see. Maybe there's a new crop of people coming into NXT. Of course, they've been teasing the debut of that like group recently coming up at Vengeance Day. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see there, I guess. Next up, I'm going to talk about Giovanni Vinci. In the case of Giovanni Vinci, it is a sad one. I liked him when he was Fabian Eichner in the Cruiserweight Classic. I thought he did good there. He impressed me. Of course, we went and seen him do stuff in NXT UK as part of Imperium. And he, of course, then that led to NXT. Then Imperium get called up, he gets left behind, he gets repackaged, and he's kind of getting over in NXT. Then they decide, let's put him back with Imperium, and then let's break him off from Imperium. We'll let air vignettes of his NXT gimmick on SmackDown, and then we'll have him lose to Apollo Crews and never be seen again. Of course, that's all kind of like tied to the rumour that he tried hitting on Tiffany Stratton. Of course, Tiffany and Ludwig are like a couple, so there's a bit of heat there, and maybe that's why things haven't worked out for Vinci. But I do think he's a good worker. I do think, there are stuff you could do with him, especially in NXT, especially if you're making way for call-ups. He's someone that I think could benefit from a little singles push in NXT. He's someone I could have seen at the top of the NXT men's division. But they decided to release him again. Like I said, NXT isn't meant to be developmental, isn't meant to be making way for these new stars. So maybe having people go back, maybe they feel like that would block the pathway. But I don't know. Like I said, I feel like keep the Giovanni, Vinci, and Cedric Alexander would really have helped the NXT men's division, especially if you are making way for call-ups, especially if you are calling up someone like a Trick Williams. Like I said in that last release video when I was talking about Cedric, outside of Trick Williams, because let's say he's one of the ones I see going up, you have Oba Femi, of course, your champion, then you have Ethan Page, then I'd say you have Javon Evans, because I'm a big Jay Malachi fan. That's really it at the moment as that top level. Of course, maybe you could push to Sean Spears. But if you're going to push to Sean Spears, why couldn't you have pushed to Cedric Alexander or Giovanni Vinci? You know what I mean? So, we'll have to, again, I'm interested to see where he lands. I don't really see him going to AEW. I feel like he'd be lost in the shuffle there, but there are some matchups in AEW where I think he would have some good matchups there. But like I said, I don't think that'll be his destination. I feel like he'll be more of a TNA guy. Or maybe he just does the independents. He doesn't really have to sign anywhere either. Next up, it's the one on this batch of the releases that I'm the most surprised about them and a bit upset about, because I am a big fan of this person. It is Isla Dawn. I did get to meet Isla and Alba when I went over to Glasgow for Clash at the Castle at a meet and greet. She's someone I've been watching and a fan of since, I'm pretty sure she was in ICW and her time before going on to NXT UK. She's someone I think is a big mistake letting go, especially right now. Again, I talked a lot about my last video about the women's mid-card. You've brought in 2 mid-card belts. You need bodies. You need people who are solid in the ring. You need people who are good characters that can help elevate these belts, help be challengers for these belts. And Isla Dawn is definitely someone who can do all that. She's definitely someone who could have been a serious challenger for the US title and the Intercontinental Championship. But more importantly, for women's tag titles, what are we doing with those? There's let's think of women's tag teams at the moment. Okay, so you've Bianca, Naomi, maybe Jade when she comes back, whatever you're going to do with that. You have Pure Fusion Collection, maybe, because Sonya's gone, so are we still going to get Shayna and Zoe? You've Kabuki Warriors, Damage Control, Kyrie and Asuka, but Asuka's currently out, but you can swap and change any member of Damage Control really there. You've Judgment Day with Liv and Raquel. I guess you still have Kaden and Katana. I'm surprised I'm up to 5, to be honest. That's it. Well, you have Jakara and Lash Legend in NXT as well. So really 6 teams. We're talking about Isla Dawn, who was a former women's tag team champion in both the main roster and in NXT. I thought her and Alba Fire were a great team, and they're definitely a team that you could have built this division around and been a key focal point in this division. I thought, I was there at Clash in the Castle. They got a good reaction when the belts, and you might say, oh, that's just because it's Scotland and they're from there. But, I genuinely think they are a good team. I think they're both great wrestlers. And I feel like Isla is someone that you could have used as singles now that you have those mid-card belts. Maybe she wouldn't have been a main eventer. Maybe she wouldn't have got to that main event level to challenge for the top belts. But she's definitely very, very good and good enough to help establish these new mid-card belts. She's someone who's part of an established tag team that can, again, help benefit those women's tag titles. And last but not least, we got Elektra Lopez. She was the last name to get announced. This is the one that was revealed on the Sunday. Again, she hasn't really been doing much. She's been managing Legado del Fantasma, of course, which is Santos Escobar and the Garzas. But other than that, she hasn't really done much. She hasn't really wrestled a lot since going up to the main roster. Even in a role as a manager, I don't really think she's added much to Legado. No, I feel like it's Santos that does most of the promo work. Anyway, she's just kind of there in the background a lot of the time. So this one I kind of understand. Like I said, it would help to have bodies just so you can maybe use other people or use her to help someone else build up a couple of wins to become a challenger for one of the mid-card belts. I don't really see her right now at that level to be a mid-card champion or to even be a challenger for the belt. Because, like I said, she hasn't wrestled. I think she's had like 3 matches on the main roster. So it's it is hard to say this is someone that could be challenging for those belts, establishing those belts when we don't really see her wrestle. But yeah, I don't really have much else to add there on Elektra. So that is going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think of this batch of releases in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe, and comment as I said if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one.